Welcome to the SMBAdvertising podcast, where our aim is to help 1 million small and medium-sized businesses to succeed with their advertising. My name is Mike Damjanovic. I'm an ad line specialist, and I'm the host of this really special podcast, which is aiming to deliver value to our listeners. My aim is really to inspire, to educate, and to help all of our listeners and viewers to succeed with their advertising. So today we have a very special guest joining us, and I'm very excited about this episode. We have Andrew Davies from Paddle.com. He works there as the Chief Marketing Officer. And for those of you that are not familiar with Paddle, they run the payment infrastructure for about 3,000 software companies worldwide. Last year, it acquired ProfitWell, which is a company, and together now they are the industry-leading pricing team, retention product, and SaaS Metrics platform used by around 30,000 businesses, again, worldwide. Previously, Andrew led global demand, digital, and brand at Optimizely after it acquired the business that he actually co-founded called ideation. Andrew also advises SaaS scale-ups and sits on the board of 90, which is an agile digital transformation consultancy, which serves the insurance industry and gives 90% of distributable profits to alleviate global poverty. He lives with his wife and 2 children in the UK countryside, and I'm very, very happy to have him joining us here today. So, Andrew, thank you so much for joining the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me on. This is great.
Perfect. Yeah, it's really, really great to follow along with the work that you guys are doing in Paddle. Not just the service that you deliver, but also the marketing, the posts that you have on LinkedIn, etc. And I think actually that's a really great place to start. We're going to be talking about the use of AI in marketing and advertising. Mm-hmm. But for those of you listening, I'm also going to link to it. There's a post that Andrew pushed out, I think, about a week or so ago. And the amazing thing with that post is very often we see now, it's very typical to people want to write about AI and they say, hey, this is something cool that you can do with AI. And that's really great. It's nice to have those posts as well. But the difference I see with the post that Paddle have been pushing out is this is actually how we're using AI to deliver X and Y and Z outcomes. So that's really, really great. So maybe we can jump right into it. You ready, Andrew?
I'm born ready. Let's go.
Born ready. So now with Paddle using AI, do you have some sort of practical applications that you're using right now that have actually really significantly helped with the marketing side?
Yeah, absolutely. We can run through some of the examples in the post, and there's some new ones since I put that up a week ago because we're trying new stuff all the time. I think the first thing to note, and you'll probably reflect on this similarly, as will many of the listeners, but I think that the release of ChatGPT and that easy conversational interface on top of some very powerful generative AI has really given everyone a peek round the corner into what's in the future. And it's so interesting, exciting, and slightly scary how it is changing so many roles. I don't know if you saw the research team at OpenAI released the jobs that they thought were most impacted and least impacted. And I sent it straight to my dad, who's an accountant, just about to retire as an accountant, because I've teased him for a while that his job is extremely automatable. Whereas when I was growing up, an accountant was a very good, solid profession that would be there for decades and decades. And I'm sure it will. I've got lots of good accountancy friends. But that industry is changing just like ours is. So yeah, that post was sparked from a couple of things that recently kind of came to my mind. Firstly, I was speaking to another CMO who I really respect, and she was saying that she doesn't want any of her team to be producing work with generative AI because she doesn't trust it. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm telling all my team to go and experiment with it. So I'm taking the opposite perspective, not because it's perfect. There's loads of weaknesses that we can talk about as well, but because it is that peek around the corner, and there's so much efficiency to be gained. And then secondly, as you said, I found there was lots of people talking about these theoretical use cases. But as I went across our work at Paddle, there were really practical ways that people were using different types of generative AI to get their job done faster, quicker, easier, safer, etc. And so a couple of those that we went through in that post, and we can dig into whichever one of these you think is interesting. I record quick promo videos for a bunch of webinars we do. Sometimes I get words wrong, and Dan, who runs our creative team, didn't even bother coming back for a re-record. He just changed it using 11 Labs, so my voice said the correct date. It's on a small ad and a small social update, so the fact that my lips were slightly different really made no difference at all. We use ChatGPT to bounce and come up with ideas for our copy, as well as some other tools built on top of generative AI. We've looked at several of our team, and this is a use case that I think is particularly interesting for your mission of democratizing quality professional advertising to business owners. We see several of our team who are non-technical, including myself, using ChatGPT as that kind of no-code coding partner to help us understand how to build a better Python script or how to extract imagery from a database. And so it gives that accessibility to jobs that really we would have had to pass on to more technical people on our team. And then there's a whole bunch of other examples in there where our team are just using ChatGPT or other forms of generative AI to get their job done faster and better.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that kind of falls quite nicely into the next question that I have for you. Of course, ChatGPT, let's take that one then. It is not perfect, and they've gone out and they've said it's not perfect. But I mean, it's getting pretty close. But the way that I see it, and the way that we use it in Adline in our team, that is that we can, almost 10x our productivity. And it's like you say, there's stuff that we can do ourselves now, which normally we would have to outsource or bang our head on the table to get done. But what if we look at the strengths then and the weaknesses? Could you say what would you say the main strengths are from AI then?
So if we're thinking about generative AI, I think the ideation process, the fact that you can instantly get a bunch of thoughts that you can react to, whether you're thinking about a video, you want to create a campaign idea, you're writing some copy for an email, the fact that it gets you the first, whether it's 40%, 60%, or 80% of the way there instantly and allows you to react to something, I think is really valuable. In my career as a marketing leader over the last decade, often I've been in a situation where I need someone on my team because my job is, dealing with a whole bunch of, collecting strategy and collecting activity across our team to make sure it's clearly defined and we've got measurement around it. Often my job is to dip into creative work that other people are doing rather than initiate it myself. And so often I've needed someone to get 50% or 80% of the way there with a blog post or a report before I've got something to react to and feedback on. And ChatGPT just allows you to get through that process so much quicker, to add your feedback and have something to react to almost to play tennis with. I think of it as a sport. If someone's playing tennis back at you and serving back at you and returning hard, it improves your game and it allows you to have something to respond to. So the first thing there is that ideation and the ability to have that two-way conversation that improves your thought process. I think it's super valuable for customization and personalization. We've got teams, and I'm talking across the industry, not just paddle here, teams of BDRs and SDRs and other customer success agents, salespeople who are taking pretty stock proposition copy in email or scripts for calls, etc., and then tweaking it slightly in order to better resonate with a specific person, target industry, vertical, geo, etc. And that kind of customization is really easy and quick. Summarization as well. I think summarization is one of the areas that that generative AI started on, and it's very strong at taking long articles and making them shorter. Data analysis, being able to give it all of the rows in a database and ask it to summarize what that text was. So, for example, we use it at the moment. We're playing around with using it for our self-reported attribution field. So on our forms, we ask, "How did you hear about paddle?" And then we have all of that in HubSpot, and we pull it all and ask ChatGPT to summarize the main trends for us. And then, as I said, helping non-technical marketers do technical tasks. Those would all be kind of real strengths that I see of the existing use cases of generative AI.
Yeah, and I think actually we've had several cases now in Adline of customers. So these are small businesses, maybe one man band
Hmm.
that sign up to Adline, and then they are using ChatGPT to create a script or to create their text to find their keywords
Hmm.
as a basis, and then they go away and then they further improve that, like you say, to it's not perfect, but they can further improve it, and then
Yeah.
they can put it into the platform, for example, like Adline, and then they can actually even generate images,
Yeah.
and even videos, and basically the whole sort of process then is automated.
Yeah.
Whereas before they would have to outsource that to maybe a marketing agency or to a freelancer and things like that. So,
Yeah.
but as we know, then there are some weaknesses, and I think we should probably touch on those. What would you say are some sort of the three sort of main weaknesses with generative AI?
Yeah. I think the first challenge that we all have to recognize is that we are still responsible for the taste and the quality level of the content we push out. And it's
Mm,
too easy to just allow an automated approach to completely replace our own sense of quality bar, our own sense of, is this good enough? Does this resonate? So the first thing is that, I do see it as something that in most instances gets it 80%, 90% there, rather than something that gets you 100% there.
mm,
Secondly, I've seen very few instances so far where generative AI goes from initial ideation all the way through to completion of a task. At the moment, this is usually a marketer using multiple systems in order to run multiple prompts, sometimes for multiple modes, in order to get the
mm,
output they desire. Although I think we will start seeing tools that start, putting together, stitching together multiple different forms here. And then finally, the very nature of this type of technology is that it's looking at an extremely wide corpus of existing content and using that to predict, based on the context and the prompt, using it to predict the next best word, sentence, paragraph. And so, by its very nature, it's finding that kind of local maximum, but it's never finding a new mountaintop. It's never finding a new bar that
mm,
is raised. And so I think our job as marketers is to spend more of our time finding things, whether it's based on new customer insight, whether it's a new way, a new metaphor for explaining what you do, a new simple way of describing what you do, a new creative for explaining and communicating what you need to communicate. I think our job as marketers is to find those new mountain peaks, because generative AI is always going to be optimizing within the existing corpus of content it's analyzing.
yeah, no, completely agree. And we talked a bit about marketers now, or marketing teams, and obviously that's the theme of the of the episode.
Yep.
But how do you see generative AI impacting, or what does it mean for marketing teams of the future?
So I don't think we're at the point where a marketer is being replaced by AI. But I certainly think we're at the point where a marketer using AI replaces a marketer. And so the first thing is that I'm encouraging my teams to investigate this. There's a couple of job vacancies we have out. This is not something that's a hard and fast part of our question set, but I would be pretty discouraged if any of those candidates are not experimenting and
Mm,
playing around with the set of tools that are in front of them. That would be a pretty clear mark that they're not interested in progressing themselves and their output. So for me,
mm,
this becomes a required skill. Prompt design, tool experimentation, finding which tool works best for what. And if I think back to when I started my career, it was something that I joked about with people, but there was truth in it, that learning how to Google was one of the most important skills as an entry-level person coming into a software business, particularly in marketing, just knowing
yeah.
how to get the best out of Google. And it's exactly the same
Mm,
now. Knowing how to get the best out of generative AI, I believe, will be a required skill. Secondly, efficiency. Clearly this allows us to do a lot more with less, which is super interesting macroeconomically, the timing of this, because we're in a market that's constantly talking about efficiency and doing more with less. And so I think that is producing a massive tailwind behind people investigating new ways to use generative AI. Because if we were in a circumstance where everyone had unlimited funding and valuations were skyrocketing like it was, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I just think there was less pain that this went in and solved. And so I think the timing is really interesting. So efficiency and probably doing more with smaller teams becomes a key element here. And there are, I think, certain jobs which are going to become largely redundant as a result of this approach and these approaches. So there are lots of people who are employed doing very basic SEO type content. Do I think that job goes away? No. Do I think the strategy is important? Absolutely. Will people be running that strategy? Absolutely. But there's elements of that work that will disappear. The same with creative. When you look at what so some of the tools are now building out, from a prompt around give me a user interface for a dog walking app, I think was the example, right, that we've probably both seen. And it instantly is creating something that's passable for that first step. But then I think thirdly, what this really means to me is that in a marketing function, particularly on the content and the creator side of things, that personality and connection, so the network of that person and their audience and how they personally connect to that audience becomes more paramount than the content they actually create. And so you'll also see alongside this, there's a whole move of marketers becoming creators, uploading their own content, building their own networks, becoming part of the distribution mechanism of their businesses. I think those are a couple of things that are changing how we think about marketing functions.
Yeah, no, amazing. So what I wonder if we could just look at now is obviously I've got this LinkedIn post that you put out a week or so ago, and here you list actually quite a few tools that you guys are using, have been using and been experimenting with. I was wondering if we could. I mean, we've talked about ChatGPT 4. Or 3 or 4, depending on where you're at. But I mean, there's one here that you mentioned about, recording a promo video, and you got the dates wrong. I've done that myself. This one, I presume, was 11 Labs. Is that the product?
Yeah, which is text to speech. So you type in the text, choose a voice, or train it on your voice, and then it repeats back the text you're typing in.
Can you use that for example, for the whole video, or is it just used for for corrections?
No, absolutely can use it for the whole video. And then, there's other tools like DID that we're playing around with that then can do the actual video creation as well. So, whether you just upload an avatar or choose one of their AI actors or do studio level photography of yourself, then, it's incredible the progress of it now outputting short videos of you talking when all it's had is the source footage and the text that you've written into the box. It's, pretty interesting.
It's amazing, yeah. So, and then you've got chatspot.ai.
So that's No, sorry, go for it.
No, exactly what I was going to ask you. Like, could you run us through, what that is, and is it something that Adline or our listeners could be using?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a conversational interface into HubSpot. So it was built by a team run by one of the founders of HubSpot, Brian. And so an example use case here for us is that we connected it with our HubSpot instance and then said, please can you find for us all the contacts living in the US and send them as a CV to me. That's a CSV to me. And so what you've got there is a conversational interface on top of your existing marketing data set. So it's kind of being that query language that sits there in a conversational way. So if you're not using HubSpot, then it's probably not as useful. But yeah, I think it's super interesting how many tools will adopt this type of approach to allow, again, non-technical or less technical users to use their data reporting and execution capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. I mean, like, a lot of the listeners to this podcast are using CRM systems, whether it's HubSpot or not. And the thing is that your CRM system is only as good as the effort that you put into it. And being able to get out these different bits of data, that's probably one of the most time consuming things that getting the data to speak to you and to really sort of understand it. That's one of, very time-consuming things. So I think what we can do is actually link to some of these tools as well in the text for this podcast, so that people can find them themselves. So no, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Andrew, for coming today. I have one final question, and I don't know if you should call it a selfish question, but with all these advances with AI, how do you see it helping, for example, the mission of this podcast, which is to help 1 million small and medium-sized businesses to advertise like a professional?
So we've talked about how non-technical people can now have access to more technical tools. We've talked about that user interface. I love your mission of helping the million small and medium-sized businesses advertise like they're much larger. And it's a democratization of access, a democratization of speciality, a democratization of knowledge. And I think that's super interesting. So for me, I think about the tools that have become shoulders of giants that we stand upon, whether that's web browsers or whether that's AWS, making sure that you didn't have to go to Best Buy and buy servers and cables, but you could just load up a credit card and have your server instance ready, whether it's the email platforms or marketing automation tools. And this becomes another pretty big step up in the shoulders of giants that we can all stand upon. So for me, the first thing is that democratization of access of some pretty advanced technical capabilities. The second thing that I do think is really important here, and we referred to it quickly before, is that many of your audience, as you say, sole traders, single business owners, people who are operating often in non-technical environments, although some of them will be running software companies. What this does is enable every one of them to have someone to bounce ideas off and come to them with an 80% done version that they can then level up. Because, I've been in that situation before, and often it's really hard to be the sole source of ideas and the sole source of content and the sole source of marketing copy. Whereas right now, you're able to automate that process of getting to a draft that you can respond and react to, which really is a small business owner who knows your customers, knows your product, knows the relationship you want to build. That's the value you can add on top of it. So I think those are two really key things that this audience and your audience can gain from what's being built.
Amazing. Well, Andrew, thank you ever so much for your inputs. I mean, this has really been a fantastic episode to sit and listen to, and just to hear this output, which is not generated by AI. It is really live, and to see that there is so much that we can get out by utilizing the tools that are out there, both for small and medium-sized businesses. These aren't just tools for the paddles of the world with 30,000 customers worldwide. It's also for us that are smaller, medium-sized companies, and this is really a way that we can start to adapt it into our daily routines almost, so that we can further improve for example, our adverts. Maybe our website can be improved. There's so much we can do. So I am going to be linking to Andrew's LinkedIn page. And I will also put in this post that he's put there, because it's really worth reading. And then just one last thing. I don't normally do this, but we do need to do a quick shout out to Paddle. I've got my Paddle cap here. It's well worth looking into it if you are a SaaS company and you're listening. It's a real game changer, and of course ProfitWell that you acquired last year. So Andrew, thank you once again. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you today.
Mike, real pleasure my end too. Thanks for the questions. I'm loving that you've still got the hat. And please, anyone's welcome to reach out, whether they want interest in our services or just in our apparel.
Yes, perfect. Yes, and for you guys that are listening and watching, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye bye.